I'm standing in the parking lot of the Starlight Motel off Route 66, and my hands won't stop shaking. The neon sign flickers the same way it did 57 years ago, casting that familiar pink and blue glow across the cracked asphalt. I told myself I was just passing through town, that stopping here was coincidence, but I've never been good at lying to myself. Not anymore. The truth is, I've been thinking about this place every day for the last 5 decades, and about the man I shared room 12 with during one sweltering July week in 1967. My name is Robert, though everyone calls me Bobby, and I'm 74 years old. Back in 67, I was 17, freshly graduated from high school in Kansas, running away from a father who drank too much and a mother who'd stopped trying to save either of us. I had $200 in my pocket, a duffel bag of clothes, and a burning need to become someone different in California. I'd read about San Francisco in magazines, seen pictures of young people with flowers in their hair, and convinced myself that's where I belonged, somewhere I could finally breathe. I made it as far as this motel in New Mexico before my car broke down. The mechanic said it would take a week to get the parts, and I watched my money situation go from tight to desperate in the space of that conversation. The motel wanted $8 a night, which doesn't sound like much now, but back then it was the difference between eating and having a roof over my head. That's when I met James. He was sitting in the motel office when I went to ask if there was any way to work off part of my room cost. He was maybe 19 or 20, with dark hair that curled at his collar, and these intense brown eyes that seemed to take in everything about me in one glance. He wore a faded denim shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and there was a worn paperback sticking out of his back pocket. He looked up when I walked in, and something in my chest shifted in a way I didn't understand yet. The motel owner, Mrs. Garcia, was explaining that she didn't need help when James spoke up. His voice was quiet but steady. "I'm in the same situation," he said. "Heading west, car trouble, tight on money. We could split a room if you're comfortable with that. $4 a night beats 8. I should have thought about it longer, should have considered that sharing a small motel room with a stranger was probably a bad idea. But there was something about the way he looked at me, something that felt like recognition, and I heard myself saying yes before my brain caught up. Room 12 had 2 double beds, a tiny bathroom, and a window air conditioning unit that rattled but mostly worked. The wallpaper was this faded yellow with brown flowers, and there was a painting of a desert sunset bolted to the wall above one of the beds. James took the bed by the window without asking, and I took the one by the door, and for the first hour we barely spoke. We just existed in this careful silence, 2 strangers figuring out the boundaries of shared space. That night, lying in the dark, listening to the air conditioner rattle and James breathe across the room, I felt more alone than I had in my entire life. I was so far from home, from everything I knew, and I had no idea if I was running towards something or just away. I must have made some sound because James's voice came soft through the darkness. "You okay over there?" "Yeah," I said, but my voice cracked on the word. "It's scary, isn't it?" he said. "Leaving everything behind, not knowing what comes next." And just like that we started talking, really talking. He told me he was from a small town in Oklahoma, that he'd been working in his father's hardware store and slowly suffocating. He told me about books he'd read, about wanting to write, about feeling like there was this whole big world out there and he was missing it. I told him about my own small town, about feeling different in ways I couldn't name, about San Francisco and the hope that somewhere out there I could figure out who I was supposed to be. We talked until 3 a.m, and when we finally fell silent, it felt like we'd known each other for years instead of hours. The next 6 days developed their own rhythm. We'd wake up late, walk to the diner down the road for breakfast, then spend the hot afternoon hours in the room reading or talking. James was working his way through Kerouac and Ginsberg, and he'd read passages aloud to me, his voice giving weight to words I'd never heard before. In the evenings, we'd walk through the desert behind the motel, watching the sun paint the rocks red and gold, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. On the 3rd day I realised I was in love with him. We were sitting on the curb outside our room, drinking Cokes from the vending machine, and he was laughing at something I'd said. The late afternoon sun caught in his hair, and his eyes crinkled at the corners, and I felt this overwhelming wave of emotion that terrified me. Because in 1967, in small-town America, boys didn't fall in love with other boys. That wasn't something you could be. That wasn't something you could want. I think he knew, though. I think maybe he'd known before I did. because that night, when I was lying in bed pretending to sleep, I felt him get up and cross the room. The mattress dipped as he sat on the edge of my bed, and his hand found mine in the darkness. "Bobby," he whispered, and there was a question in the way he said my name. I squeezed his hand, unable to speak, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. He squeezed back, and then he was lying next to me, and we were holding each other like drowning men, and I was crying into his shoulder while he stroked my hair and whispered that it was okay, that he felt it too, that we weren't alone. We kissed for the first time in that motel room, in the darkness with the air conditioner rattling and the neon sign painting shadows on the walls. It was clumsy and desperate, and the most real thing I'd ever experienced. For 3 more nights, we'd wait until the lights were off, and then one of us would cross the space between the beds, and we'd hold each other like it was the only thing keeping us tethered to Earth. We didn't talk about it during the day. Couldn't. The world in 1967 wasn't safe for what we were, for what we felt. But at night, in room 12 of the Starlight Motel, we could be honest. We could be ourselves. On the last night, we both knew it was ending. My car was fixed. James had decided to head north instead of west toward Portland, where he had a cousin who might help him find work. We lay tangled together, and he traced patterns on my arm with his fingertips. "Come with me," I whispered. "We could figure it out together." He was quiet for so long I thought he might have fallen asleep. Then, "We destroy each other, Bobby. You know we would. 2 scared kids trying to be something the world says we can't be. We'd end up hating each other, or worse, hating ourselves." "I could never hate you," I said. "Not now, but give it time. Give it pressure. Give it a world that wants to crush what we are." His voice broke. "I'd rather remember this as perfect than watch it turn into something ugly." We didn't sleep that night. We just held each other until the sun came up, and then we got dressed in silence, packed our separate bags, and stood in the parking lot saying goodbye like casual acquaintances instead of like 2 people who'd just spent a week remaking each other's understanding of the world. "Be happy," he said, and then he got in his car and drove north, and I got in mine and drove west, and that was supposed to be the end of the story. I made it to San Francisco, found work, found an apartment, found a community of people who understood what it meant to be different. I marched in protests. I lost friends to AIDS. I watched the world slowly, painfully, start to change. I had relationships, some brief, some that lasted years. I built a good life. But I never stopped thinking about James, about room 12, about those 6 days when I first understood who I was. I tried to find him over the years. This was before the internet made everyone findable, so it was letters to his hometown that went unanswered, calls to people who might have known him. I convinced myself he'd probably forgotten about me, that I was holding on to something that had only been significant to me. I told myself it was foolish to build a shrine in my heart to 6 days 57 years ago. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter, actual physical letter, forwarded through 2 old addresses before it found me. The handwriting was shaky but unmistakable. Inside was a single piece of paper with an address, a date, and 4 words. Room 12, same time. Which is why I'm standing in this parking lot, my 74-year-old heart racing like I'm 17 again, staring at the door to room 12. The motel looks exactly the same, though everything around it has changed. The highway was rerouted, most of the businesses on this strip are closed, but the starlight keeps flickering its neon promise into the desert night. I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know if James is the same person I remember, or if I am. I don't know if we'll have anything to say to each other after all these years, or if this is a mistake trying to recapture something that only existed in a specific moment in time. But I know I have to open that door. My hand is on the knob when it opens from the inside, and there he is. James. Older, grey-haired, lines on his face that weren't there before, but those same brown eyes that see right through me. He's wearing a denim shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and I almost laugh at that, at the fact that some things never change. "Hi, Bobby," he says, and his voice still does that thing to my chest, still makes everything else fall away. "Hi," I manage. We stand there in the doorway and 57 years collapse into nothing. I can see the boy he was in the man he is, can see the echo of that summer in the way he's looking at me. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he says. "I wasn't sure you'd be here." "I've thought about you every single day," he says quietly. "Every day for 57 years. I told myself I was protecting us both by leaving, by not trying to find you. I convinced myself it was the right choice. But Bobby, I've been so tired of making the right choice. I step into the room and he closes the door behind me. It's been renovated since '67. New furniture, new paint, but it's still room 12. Still has that same window, that same quality of light. I looked for you, I tell him, for years. I wanted to know if you were okay, if you were happy. I had a good life, he says. I became a teacher, taught English literature for 40 years. I had a partner for 23 years before he passed. I have friends, a house, a life I'm proud of. He pauses. But I never stopped wondering what if. What if I'd been braver? What if I'd said yes when you asked me to come with you? Would it have worked? I ask. Back then, with everything stacked against us? I don't know, probably not. He moves closer and I can see his hands are shaking too. But we're not those scared kids anymore, Bobby. We don't have to make choices based on what the world might think. We're old men now, and if we want to be foolish, we've earned that right. What are you saying? I'm saying I didn't ask you here for closure. I asked you here because I'm tired of living with regret. His voice is steady now, certain. I'm saying I want to know who you became. I want to tell you who I became. I want to see if there's still something here, or if we're just two old men chasing a memory. I look at him, really look at him, and I see all the years we lost, but I also see possibility. See that maybe it's not too late. Maybe some stories don't end the first time you walk away. I live in San Francisco, I say. I run a bookstore. I have a cat named Kerouac and an apartment with a view of the bay. I've had a good life too, James, but there's always been this space in it shaped exactly like you. He reaches out, takes my hand the same way he did 57 years ago in the darkness, and I feel 17 again and 74 at the same time. I don't know what happens next, he says. I don't know if this is crazy or if it's the sanest thing either of us has ever done. Me neither, I admit, but I know I don't want to walk away again. I know I'm tired of wondering. We sit on the edge of the bed, the same position as that first night, hands linked between us, and we start talking. Really talking. About the decades we missed, the people we loved, the versions of ourselves we became. About loss and joy and survival. About living through a plague. About watching the world change in ways we never imagined it could when we were scared kids in a motel room. As the night deepens and the neon sign paints familiar shadows on the walls, I realize something. This isn't about recapturing the past. That version of us, those boys we were, they're gone. But maybe that's okay. Maybe what we're doing is introducing the men we became to each other, seeing if there's something new here, something built on foundation of who we were but not limited by it. Stay, James says as the sun starts to rise. Not just tonight. Stay. Come to Portland or I'll come to San Francisco. Let's stop wasting time. And looking at him in the dawn light, at this man who's been a ghost in my heart for 57 years, I know my answer. I've spent my whole life being brave in some ways and cowardly in others. I fought for my right to exist, to love, to be seen. But I never fought for this. For him. For us. Yes, I say. Yes, let's stop wasting time. We check out of room 12 together as the morning sun burns away the desert chill. Mrs. Garcia's granddaughter is running the place now, and she smiles at us like she knows something we're just figuring out. In the parking lot, we stand between our cars, and James cups my face in his hands. I loved you then, he says, and I think I could love you now. I know I could love you now, I tell him. I think I never stopped. This time when we drive away, we're not going in opposite directions. We're following each other north, toward Portland, toward whatever comes next. And I keep looking in my rearview mirror, seeing his car behind mine, and thinking about how sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give yourself a second chance. Room 12 of the Starlight Motel is empty again, waiting for the next travellers who need shelter. But it gave us what we needed twice now, 57 years apart. It gave us a space to be honest, to be ourselves, to find each other. Some places are like that, holding on to the echoes of what happened in them, waiting to complete stories that seemed finished. We're not kids anymore. We're old men with grey hair and creaky knees and a lifetime of experiences between us. But maybe that's better. Maybe now we can build something that lasts, something that doesn't have to hide in the darkness. Maybe now we're finally ready for what we started in 1967. The Starlight Motel fades in my rearview mirror, but I'm not sad. I'm grateful for the past, for the present, for the future that's suddenly full of possibility, for the courage it took to show up and the courage it's taking to stay. Sometimes you get a second chance. Sometimes the universe gives you another shot at the thing you thought you lost forever. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take it.